It's ridiculous, isn't it? To fall for someone because of a smile. But then again, ridiculous things tend to happen when you least expect them. Like walking into a dance studio on a Tuesday night and finding your entire life rearranged by a stranger's kindness. I wasn't looking for love. Hell, I wasn't even looking for distraction. My niece had been struggling dark thoughts, therapy sessions that barely worked, a sadness I couldn't chase away no matter how hard I tried. And then came him, the dance instructor with a laugh that could slice through silence and a patience that kept her from drowning. Ethan. He wasn't just her teacher. He became her anchor. Every week I watched my niece walk into his studio with shadows under her eyes and walk out with light returning, as if someone had remembered to turn her soul back on. And somewhere in that miracle, I started noticing more than just gratitude. I started noticing him. The way his shirt clung to him after hours of rehearsal. The way sweat glistened along his jawline when he demonstrated a routine. The gentle correction of posture when he placed a steadying hand on a shoulder. He was all softness wrapped in quiet strength. A contradiction I couldn't ignore. But this isn't a fairy tale where I get to waltz into his arms without consequence. No, this is America. Small-town expectations and unspoken judgments hang heavy in the air. And me? I've lived long enough to know the cost of falling for someone you're not supposed to. Still, it started small late-night drives to pick up my niece, casual conversations that stretched too long, the way his laughter lingered even after I drove away. And then the dangerous part, noticing how his eyes sometimes stayed on me a beat too long, like maybe he wasn't as untouchable as I thought. One night, after class, I lingered instead of rushing off. My niece had left early with friends, leaving just the two of us in the quiet hum of the studio. Ethan leaned against the mirrored wall, towel slung over his shoulder, chest rising and falling from exertion. "You're always here," he said, half-smile curling on his lips. "Someone has to make sure she gets home safe." His gaze didn't waver. "And what about you? Who makes sure you're safe?" The words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because no one had asked me that in years. Maybe because in that moment, with the glow of studio lights softening his features, I wanted the answer to be him. I should have walked away. I should have tucked the thought back where it belonged, buried under gratitude, under responsibility, under fear. But instead, I let silence stretch between us, thick with things neither of us dared to say. He broke it first. "You know, your niece, she's stronger than she thinks. She's getting better." I nodded, throat tight. "Because of you." Ethan's smile faltered, and for a split second, vulnerability flickered across his face. "I just gave her a place to breathe. Sometimes that's all people need." His words clung to me long after I left. And so did the image of his eyes catching mine in the mirror, like a secret waiting to be told. The dangerous thing about secrets, though, is how they grow. The more you hide them, the more they consume you. I started catching myself thinking about him at odd hours, wondering what his laugh sounded like when he wasn't surrounded by students, what his hand would feel like if it lingered longer than it should. It was wrong. I told myself that 1,000 times. But the heart doesn't give a damn about right or wrong. It just beats, stubborn and reckless, pulling you toward the very thing you know could break you. And Ethan was the kind of man who could break me without even trying. It's strange how the human heart can endure storms and still crave tenderness. For weeks, Ethan and I circled each other in silence, words we never dared to speak hanging heavy between us. I tried to convince myself that my feelings were temporary, a passing weakness brought on by gratitude. But every time his eyes found mine across that mirrored studio, I knew I was lying. The breaking point came on a rain-soaked Thursday night. My niece had already left, and I stayed behind, pretending to check messages on my phone as Ethan packed up. The thunder outside made the air electric, and maybe that's what pushed me past the edge. "You ever get tired of pretending?" I asked, my voice sounding too raw, too naked. Ethan froze, his back still to me. Then slowly, he turned, his expression unreadable. "Pretending what?" "That this, whatever this is, doesn't exist." The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Then Ethan set down his bag and walked closer, each step deliberate, his eyes never leaving mine. I thought I was imagining it, he whispered. The way you look at me. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering in my throat. You weren't. And just like that, the dam broke. Ethan's hand brushed mine, tentative at first, then firmer as if claiming something he'd been denied too long. The storm outside roared, but inside the studio it was quiet, just our breathing, ragged and uncertain. When he finally kissed me, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, aching, like two men who had been starving and suddenly found food. But love isn't simple. Not here. Not for us. The weeks that followed were stolen moments, coffee runs that lasted too long, late-night texts that felt like lifelines, touches exchanged when no one else was looking. It should have been enough, but secrecy is a heavy chain, and soon it began to wear us down. One night, after class, Ethan pulled me aside. His face was pale, his eyes clouded with something that scared me. They're talking, he said. Some of the parents. About us. Guilt stabbed through me. Because of my niece? Because of everything. Small towns, big mouths. You know how it works. I did. God, I did. The memory of high school taunts, of whispers behind locker doors, of fists in dark parking lots, all of it came rushing back. I'd spent years building walls to protect myself, and here Ethan was, climbing over them, only to put himself in the same line of fire. Maybe we should stop, I said, hating myself for the words. His jaw tightened. Is that what you want? No, I admitted, my voice breaking. But maybe it's what we need. Ethan looked at me like I just ripped something out of him. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me in the hollow silence of the studio. For days I couldn't breathe right. My niece noticed my distance but didn't ask. She was healing, finally finding her rhythm again, and I refused to let my broken heart cast a shadow on her progress. Still, every time I drove past the studio, my chest ached with the absence of him. It wasn't until my niece's recital that everything came crashing back. She was radiant on stage, every step proof of her survival. I sat in the audience, pride swelling in my chest, when suddenly Ethan walked onto the stage to introduce the performance. Our eyes met, and in that single glance, every wall I had built, every fear I had clung to, shattered. Because what I saw in him wasn't just desire, it was belief. Belief that maybe love wasn't something to be ashamed of, but something to be fought for. After the show, I found him in the hallway, surrounded by congratulations. He smiled politely at everyone, but when he saw me, his expression shifted, softened, as if he'd been waiting all night. I didn't care about the whispers anymore. I didn't care about small towns or their small minds. All I cared about was the man standing in front of me, the man who had saved my niece and unknowingly saved me too. I walked up to him, my heart pounding, and said the words I should have said weeks ago. I'm not pretending anymore. Not with you. Ethan's eyes glistened, his voice low but steady. Then don't. Stay. So I did. It wasn't easy. The world didn't suddenly turn kind because we decided to be honest. There were stares, whispers, moments when I wondered if we'd made a mistake. But every challenge was met with Ethan's hand in mine, grounding me, reminding me that love is always worth the risk. My niece thrived, stronger than ever, her laughter echoing through rooms that once held only silence. And every time she smiled, I thought of Ethanoff, how he'd given her back her joy, and in turn, given me back my hope. Some nights, when the studio is empty and the lights are dim, Ethan and I dance. I'm terrible at it, left feet and no rhythm, but he doesn't care. He holds me close, guides me across the floor, his laughter brushing against my ear. In those moments, I understand something I never did before. Love isn't about perfection. It's about presence, about showing up even when it's hard. And Ethan shows up every damn day. So yes, maybe it's ridiculous to fall in love because of a smile. But if you saw the way his smile lights up the darkest corners of my life, you'd understand. Some things are worth the risk. Some things are worth the fight. And Ethan, he's worth everything. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.